They buried him before sunrise, no names, no prayers, only fear. They thought the river would keep their secret, but water remembers what humans forget. He had the eyes of a storm black, endless, alive, and even death couldn't close them. Time has passed. The house still stands. Their laughter still echoes in its glass halls. But when the first thunder rolls tonight, those same eyes will open again, not to seek justice, but to remind them what justice sounds like when it finally breathes. Rain drummed softly against the iron gates of Vale Manor, turning the gravel drive into a mirror of the sky. Inside, everything gleamed polished chandeliers, silver frames, the illusion of peace. 6 months had passed since Adrian Vale's body vanished beneath the black current of the Thames. Officially, he was declared dead after an automobile collision near Oxford. Unofficially, no one asked why the car's remains never surfaced. Eleanor Greystone did not believe in ghosts. She believed in paperwork. Her voice carried through the East Corridor, crisp and practiced as she dictated letters to the company board. Consolidate the shares under Vale Industries Global, she instructed. By next quarter, we erase the tragedy narrative. Charles nodded, already planning the next merger, while their son Damien scrolled through his phone, bored. He had once called Adrian the family embarrassment. Now he called him a cautionary tale. Outside the estate, the same river that had devoured him slid past the field, slow, dark, unjudging. At dusk, a fisherman near Surrey Edge pulled a piece of cloth from the shallows. Grey, smooth, metal-tipped at the hem, like something torn from a tailored suit. He tossed it aside, uneasy, and swore he heard someone across the water whisper, "Not yet." Across the channel, in Geneva's St. Clair Rehabilitation Centre, a man awoke to the soft hum of monitors. He didn't know his name, but his first instinct was to look for the river. Dreams had shown him its curve, its taste. Every night he drowned, every dawn he fought his way back through darkness scattered with voices. One voice stood out, a woman's. She kept saying home. The nurse entered. "You're recovering fast, Mr. Cross," he frowned. Cross? That's what they wrote on your papers. Gabriel Cross. He repeated it like testing borrowed skin. The cross. He paused, eyes flicking toward the window where rain streaked the glass. It never ends, does it? Back in Surrey, in a quiet guest wing that smelled of old lily and forgotten prayers, Isla, Wynne folded the same black coat she pressed to her husband's coffin months ago. Everyone said she was lucky the Greystones kept her on as a servant. They also said madness lingered in her shadow. But tonight she felt something different, the faint sound of footsteps in the corridor, above the one that had been sealed since the funeral. She turned toward the ceiling, whispering his name as if memory could answer. And somewhere across the sleeping city, the river swelled as if breathing in reply. For a long second, Isla didn't move. The sound was faint 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, coming from the floor above her. That floor had been sealed since the night of the accident. She lifted the lantern, her voice trembling. "Adrian?" Silence answered, then a whisper floated down the stairs, soft as breath. "Follow the light, Isla." Her heart jolted. No, you're gone. Follow the light. She climbed the staircase barefoot, the boards sighing beneath her weight. At the landing, the air turned cold, metallic, like the moment before a storm. The locked corridor door was cracked open, candlelight flickering from within. When she stepped inside, the scent of cedar and old ink hit her. Adrian's study. Everything had been cleaned away months ago, yet his chair was turned toward the window as if he'd just risen from it. "Who's there?" she demanded, louder now. From the shadow near the desk came a man's voice, older, steady. "It's only me, Mrs. Vale. Mr. Bennet," she exhaled, half relieved, half angry. "What are you doing here at this hour?" "Looking for answers," he said quietly. "There are papers missing from your husband's case. I thought you might know which ones." "I don't care about papers." "I heard him." "Who?" "Adrian." She threw her hand toward the wall. "He spoke to me just now." Bennett studied her face. "I don't doubt what you heard. But sometimes grief echoes its own voice. I know what my husband sounded like." Her tone hardened. "And you should too. You were his father's friend." The lawyer's eyes dimmed. "Then help me, Isla. His father left a sealed testament the night they died. Someone took it before I could read it. Without that, his inheritance, the truth, stays buried." A gust rattled the window. Somewhere below, water beat against stone. She looked toward the riverbank visible beyond the manor walls. "If it's the truth you want," she murmured, "listen to that. It's been trying to speak for months." Across the channel in Geneva, a telephone buzzed in a dim hospital hall. A nurse answered, then hurried into room 14. "Mr. Cross, someone from England keeps calling. He won't give his name." Gabriel looked up. "Did he say what you wanted?" "Said you'd remember the river." His pulse jumped. He took the receiver. "Hello?" Static, then a low male voice. "You're not supposed to be alive. Who is this?" "That depends on who you think you are, Adrian Vale." The line clicked before he could speak. The sky outside tightened to a bruise color. Rain began again. Gabriel stared at his reflection in the window. The scar down his cheek, the black eyes he didn't recognize, and whispered to nobody. "Then I'm coming home to find out." Back in Surrey, Bennett walked the halls alone after Isla left for her room. He pulled from his coat an old envelope creasing at its edges. Inside was a letter, addressed in cramped script, underscore to be. "Delivered if Adrian returns." Underscore. He read the first line under his breath. "If you're reading this, it means the river failed to keep its promise." A door slammed somewhere above, echoing like a gunshot. He straightened. "Isla?" he called. No answer. Only the steady hum of rain and a voice too young, too haunted to be his own. "Follow the light, Mr. Bennet." His lantern flickered. Outside, the river kept rising, a black ribbon winding its way, back toward the manor as if it had finally remembered the route home. By dawn, the garden was a drowned mirror water curling around marble statues, licking old stone like memory returned. Inside, Isla woke to a cold draft and the scent of smoke. The candles she'd left on her bedside table had burned out hours ago, yet one still glowed faintly, its wax carving a path across the floor. She frowned. Someone knocked. 3 times again. "Who's there?" she called. A pause, then Bennett's hoarse answer. "It's morning, Mrs. Vale. The housekeeper says the cellar floodgates are open. You might want to see." She threw on her shawl and stepped into the corridor. Water had already crept up the stairs, thin lines of mud marking each tread, like fingerprints of the river itself. Downstairs, Bennett stood with his trousers wet to the knee. His lantern illuminated something glinting in the current. A brass key, its chain tangled around a piece of glass. He stooped to pick it up. "The crest," he murmured, showing her the engraved symbol on the key's head. "The Vale seal. It shouldn't be here." Isla drew back. "That's impossible. The vault was destroyed with the study." "Then what?" Bennett said slowly. "Unlocked it last night. In London. Eleanor Greystone's." Driver fought rain as she stepped into her office tower overlooking the Thames. She had a message waiting, an untraceable email with a single sentence. The river is rising. You owe it an answer. She deleted it, pale, then poured gin into her morning coffee. Charles entered with a briefcase. Another anonymous threat. Idiots, she snapped. Every storm turns them poets. Still, her hands shook as she closed the laptop. The screen had reflected something behind her two dark eyes that didn't belong to anyone in the room. Thousands of kilometers away, Gabriel sat on a train crossing through France. He had no destination, only a name folded inside his pocket. Isla, Vale. He traced the letters with his thumb until they felt like his own. The woman across the table smiled at him. You look like a man running from ghosts. He met her eyes. No, running to one. Rain hammered against the windows. The conductor announced Surrey as the next stop. Gabriel closed his eyes and heard again the distant voice from the telephone. You're not supposed to be alive. He spoke under his breath. Then I guess I owe them a surprise. Back at Vale Manor, the river's murmur had become a steady hum beneath the floorboards. Bennett set the key on the mantelpiece. If the vault's open, someone wants what's inside. Isla asked, what was kept there? Letters, documents, he called. The inheritance, truth. Christopher Vale was afraid. Someone would rewrite his son's story. Thunder rolled. Windows shuddered. From upstairs came a sound like chains dragging across wood. Bennett turned to her. Stay here. No, she said. This house is mine too. They climbed together. At the top landing, a wet trail ran toward Adrian's old room. The door was open. Inside, moonlight fell on the mirror above the desk. 4 words had been traced into the fogged glass. I'm on my way. Bennett read them aloud, his voice barely a whisper. How? Isla swallowed, eyes bright. Because he always kept his promises. Outside, the black ribbon of the river tore free of its bank and surged towards Surrey Road. Somewhere beyond the storm, a train whistle answered long, low, and coming home. Rain carved silver lines down the carriage windows, blurring the green blur of English countryside into a restless sea. Gabriel sat by the window, head bowed, fingers pressed to the glass. Each flash of lightning showed him fragments of memory. A hand reaching through water, a ring slipping from a finger, the taste of iron in his mouth. The clerk's voice over the intercom jolted him back. Next stop, Surrey Edge. End of the line. He gathered his coat, the envelope from Bennett still sealed inside, and stepped into the rain. It smelled exactly like the night he died. A bent taxi driver approached. Need a lift, sir? Gabriel hesitated, then nodded. Vale Manor. The driver frowned. You sure? Nobody lives there anymore. Just a widow and rumours. Then let's see which one opens the door. At the manor, Isla stood in the front hall, watching the storm claw at the windows. Bennett paced near the fireplace, reading and rereading the letter he'd retrieved. Christopher Vale mentions a dossier, documents proving his sister and her husband staged the accident for control of the estate. But he writes, if ever the boy returns, give him back his name before they take his soul again. Isla's breath caught. You mean? Bennett's eyes lifted. I mean the man in Geneva isn't a stranger. He's Adrian Vale. Thunder cracked above them. The chandelier trembled. The doorbell rang once harsh, metallic, real. Isla froze. Do you hear that? She whispered. Bennett managed a dry laugh. I was hoping I didn't. She opened the door. Wind burst in first, scattering rain across the marble. A man stood there, soaked, coat torn, eyes darker than the sky. For a heartbeat she couldn't breathe. "Adrian?" she whispered. "That's what they used to call me," he said, voice rough like gravel. "Now they call me a mistake." Bennett stepped forward, disbelief cutting through habit. "It's impossible. I thought so too until the river woke me." Isla reached toward him. He didn't move. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "Everywhere they threw me. But I learned how to swim in silence." Lightning washed the room in white. His gaze swept the hall, pausing on portraits long familiar. The smile that traced his mouth was neither joy nor anger, it was recognition. "This place forgot what it owes," he said quietly. "I've come to collect." Bennett clutched the envelope. "If you're truly who you claim, there's more to reclaim than vengeance. There's a truth your father died to protect. Truth." Adrian stepped closer. "Truth drowned with me. All that's left is the debt." Isla's voice shook. "You're home now. Let me help you." He shook his head. "Home ended the night they locked the door behind me." Thunder rolled again, overlapping the distant siren of the river breaking its banks. "They think I'm a ghost," he murmured. "Maybe ghosts are just those who've run out of forgiveness." And as lightning split the horizon, far down the road, 2 car headlights turned toward Vale Manor. Eleanor Greystone was coming home early. Inside, the storm quieted for a breath, as if the heavens themselves paused to listen. Adrian stood in the doorway, rain sliding off his shoulders, his gaze fixed on the long drive where those twin beams crawled closer. Isla took a step toward him, the flicker of fear and tenderness warring in her voice. "She see you. They'll all see you. They'll try again." He didn't look away. "Then let them. I want to see if the dark still recognizes its own hands." Bennett tore the seal from Christopher Vale's letter. The paper had blackened with water, the ink running like tears. "Listen to this," he breathed. "If justice ever reappears wearing my son's eyes, do not let it forget mercy." Adrian turned toward him, drenched and trembling. "He knew? He knew what they planned?" Bennett nodded, throat tight. "And he knew it would break you." The tires skidded outside, headlights carved through the rain, throwing long pale bars across the marble floor. Isla's hand found Adrian's sleeve. "Please, whatever you do, don't let hate speak for you." He looked down at her fingers, pale and shaking against his coat. "Hate's all I had left that could still speak." The front doors opened before she could answer. Eleanor Greystone entered, wrapped in a white coat that gleamed under the chandelier. Her son Damien followed, umbrella still dripping, arrogance intact even in terror. For an instant, lightning framed them all together, the living and the nearly, lost a portrait of unfinished sins. Eleanor froze. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then faintly, "Adrian?" He met her gaze. "You taught me silence. I returned to teach you sound." Charles Greystone stumbled in behind them, his face blood, drained. "This is madness," he muttered. "An imposter playing games with grief." Adrian stepped forward so that the light cut across the old scar by his temple. "Madness?" he said softly. "If you knew what that word feels like underwater, you'd whisper it too." Isla reached for him again. "Stop this. You wanted truth. You didn't die for revenge." He blinked, a single tear carving a line down rain-soaked skin. "Maybe I didn't die at all. Maybe death was the only way to be heard." Thunder slammed against the walls. The river outside roared. The power flickered. Eleanor's voice rose above the storm, sharp and breaking. "What do you want from us?" He stepped closer until his shadow fell over her. Everything you owed the child you called broken. Behind him, Bennett's lantern flared as electricity died completely. The last thing anyone saw was those eyes, dark, endless alive, and the river's reflection pouring through the windows like it had finally found its way home. Water surged across the marble floor, twisting around furniture, climbing the stairs as if something beneath it was pushing upward. Eleanor clutched the banister, trembling. "This can't be real," she whispered. Bennett waded through the spreading flood, his lantern flickering above the surface. "It isn't a storm, Mrs. Greystone. It's the river coming to collect its due." Adrian stood motionless in the center of the hall, his eyes following the water as it mirrored the chandelier's dying light. Lightning flashed again, catching the silver key still hanging from Bennett's coat. He took a step toward Eleanor. "Do you remember that night?" Her voice fractured. "Don't do this." His tone was steady. "Your car was an hour behind ours. You knew the road would be empty. You knew what would happen." Damien tried to speak, but words stuck in his throat. "He was sick," he managed. "It was a mercy." Adrian's laugh was low, hollow. "Mercy doesn't press an accelerator. Mercy doesn't watch the river swallow a car." Isla stepped between them. "Enough. He's alive, let that be punishment enough." Adrian's gaze softened for a heartbeat. "You still pray for them?" "I pray for peace. Then pray for me too. Because I don't know what to do with what's left of me." Outside, police sirens wailed in the distance. The floodwaters hissed as they touched the live wires sparking from the floor lamps. Bennett grabbed Adrian's arm. "Listen to me. Your father's letter, there's another page." He pulled the soaked envelope from his pocket. The last sheet slid free. Across the top, in handwriting barely legible through water stains, one line read, "The man who betrays you will also be the man to save you." Adrian looked at Bennett, confused. "What does that mean?" Before the lawyer could answer, the ceiling groaned. A beam snapped loose, crashing down where Eleanor stood. Damien shoved her aside, the impact catching his shoulder instead. He fell into the rushing water with a choked cry. Eleanor screamed, reaching for him, but Adrian was faster. He plunged into the current, one arm locking around his cousin, pulling him up while the hall dissolved into chaos. When they staggered clear of the flood, both were soaked and bleeding. Adrian's chest heaved, his voice broken. "Now you understand what mercy feels like." Damien coughed, stunned. "Why save me?" "Because he said you would." Bennett stepped forward, steadying Eleanor. "Your husband was right. The inheritance was never money. It was remorse." Lightning tore again at the sky. The river began to recede, leaving mud, debris, and shivering survivors in its wake. Adrian looked toward the front doors yawning open on the flooded drive. He could hear faint sirens and, beyond them, the wind finally easing. "It's over," Isla said, touching his face. He closed his eyes. "No, it just remembered where to end." And with the water draining back to the river, its currents carried the Vale Crest Key into the dark, taking the last of their secrets home. The storm left behind a ghost of silence, that kind of hushed stillness when a house tries to decide whether it survived. Morning broke over Surrey with colourless light. Fog hung low on the lawn like smoke that couldn't bear to leave. Inside Vale Manor, water dripped from the banisters in slow, measured beats. Adrian sat on the steps, coat torn, hands scraped raw. Isla knelt beside him with a towel, pressing it against his palms. He watched the blood mingle with river silt. "I used to think the river wanted revenge," he said quietly. "Maybe it just wanted to give something back." Bennett looked up from the pile of papers he was salvaging from his wet briefcase. It gave you your life back, Adrian. Don't mistake that for punishment. Eleanor sat in the corner of the ruined hall, her white coat stained brown, eyes vacant. Damien beside her looked like half a shadow arm slung in a makeshift bandage, face silent but not defiant anymore. Even Charles Greystone said nothing. Sometimes the loss of power shows more quietly than grief. Adrian stood and faced them. You tried to erase me because I wasn't perfect, because a broken mind wasn't fit for your name. But look around, your perfection drowned you. Eleanor's voice barely rose above the dripping water. Then kill us. That's why you came. Adrian shook his head. No, I came to end it. Let the river judge the dead. I'm still trying to learn how to live. Bennett stepped closer, pressing the remaining documents into his hand. Your parents' shares, their trust, their legacy. They're yours again. The law will see it properly this time. Adrian laughed bitterly. Paper can't fix blood, Mr. Bennett, Isla whispered. It can start a future. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the storm broke. There was no fear in her eyes anymore, only resignation and the echo of years she had lost to grief. You waited, he said. You came back, she replied. Did I? Enough to remember how to breathe. Outside, sirens faded as police boats dragged the river for what they assumed were bodies. They would find nothing. The water always kept its own counsel. From the upstairs landing, a sunbeam broke through the cracked window, spilling over the mirror where someone had once written, I'm on my way. The words were gone now, washed clean. Adrian looked toward the light and spoke as if to someone still listening. Rest now. It's done. He took Isla's hand, and for the first time in years the house didn't echo with fear. Only water whispering its way back to peace. Far down the hill, the river gleamed under the new sun. No longer black, no longer hungry, just a mirror carrying a lost name back into silence. Just a mirror carrying a lost name back into silence. Weeks passed before the estate stopped smelling of floodwater. Men in uniforms came and went, paperwork multiplied. Reporters gathered at the gates like crows who'd arrived too late. They spoke of tragedy, redemption, inheritance. None managed to spell the word forgiveness. Adrian Vale stayed. He repaired what he could, broken banisters, shattered frames, that left the stains where the river had touched. Proof, he called them. Let the house remember. Eleanor and Charles surrendered. Vale Industries and left Surrey under investigation. Some said they fled. Some swore they'd taken vows of penitence in Rome. Damien remained in hospital care, learning, slowly, how to live without a mirror. Bennett handled the legal storms until his hands finally stopped shaking. He kept only one memento in his office. The hinge of a key chain, salt-stained and rusting. As for Adrian, people continued to swear they saw him walking the riverbank at dusk, barefoot, coat collar up, eyes black and easy again. He no longer spoke of vengeance. He spoke of currents and tides. Sometimes he'd stop at the water's edge and say quietly, greater than, thank you for keeping the heart. Isla joined him there one evening when the sky bled gold across the fields. Her voice was gentle but tired. What now? He smiled without looking at her. Now we let the water rest. She laughed softly. You sound like your father. Maybe I finally know what he meant. Justice isn't loud. It starts when the noise stops. They stood together until the wind carried the last echo of thunder away. For the first time since he'd been pulled from the deep, Adrian could hear nothing at all, no voices, no memories, no past screaming to be answered. Only the soft movement of current against his boots. Isla slipped her hand into his. It was cold at first, then steady. He looked down, and in the lowering light, their reflections merged, one shadow where two had stood. Behind them, the old house caught the sunset on its windows, and for a moment the glass lit up like 1,000 small eyes closing at peace. The river kept moving, unhurried, indifferent and kind. It had given back what was lost, and taken only what was meant to go. And when night finally folded over Surrey edge, the wind carried one last name across the water, not as a curse, not as a confession, but as a prayer. Adrian. The current answered with silence, and in that silence, for once, there was peace.